The federal government needs to pay for what they broke here. You don't get to break things and then just leave.
And so we're calling on the federal government to fully step up, to provide direct financial assistance to our city.
After allowing a massive amount of fraud like the Somalia daycare fraud to destroy Minnesota's economy while also enabling protesters to riot in the streets of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey and Tim Walz, they're now demanding your federal tax dollars to pay for everything, while also planning to give tens of millions of dollars to these same people, and a lot more that we're going to cover throughout today's video. Also, if you want daily immigration updates with evidence, without bias, please consider subscribing. Let us get into it by taking a look at this demand from Governor Tim Walz.
The federal government needs to pay for what they broke here. There are going to be accountability on the things that happened, but one of the things is the incredible and immense costs that were borne by the people of this state. The federal government needs to be responsible. You don't get to break things and then just leave.
So that is Governor Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, and what he's demanding here are your tax dollars from the federal government. And the reason why he's asking for this now is because Operation Metro Surge is coming to an end. And if you don't know what Operation Metro Surge is basically after all the fraud was discovered in Minnesota and Minneapolis, the Trump administration, they decided to send ICE in to essentially clean up the state and clean up the city of Minneapolis. And the reason why ICE was chosen is because a lot of the fraud that was being committed, it was reported that it was being committed by Somali nationals. So ICE went in to literally go in there, clean up the streets, and deport these migrants, these Somali migrants. And what we saw as a result of that, we saw a lot of chaos. And now it's being reported that it cost Minneapolis, the city of Minneapolis, over $200 million. Just in January to the economy. Take a look at this reporting.
Tracking your tax dollars. Tonight, the city of Minneapolis claims Operation Metro Surge has cost $203 million in lost wages, business earnings, hotel cancellations, and food and rental assistance.
Richard Reeve has a closer look at those numbers as he pushes for answers from the city about a path forward now.
Hey, Lindsay, Mayor Frey has called the damage from the ICE operation staggering. Now, these are higher numbers than we've ever seen before. The biggest chunk, $81 million in restaurant and small business losses.
While it's unfortunate that smaller businesses are suffering as a result of this operation, we have to remember how we got here. Because Governor Tim Walz, Mayor Jacob Frey, and Attorney General Keith Ellison knew exactly what was going on with this fraud. And they did nothing to stop this fraud or hold people accountable. And here's a reminder of how big this fraud was. Take a look.
In fact, according to a new bombshell report from the New York Times, Somalian migrants in Minnesota have defrauded nearly $1 billion in taxpayer-funded benefits under Democrat Governor Walz's leadership. President Trump is putting an end to this dangerous America Last approach. His position is rooted in common sense.
That was Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, on the scale of the Somali fraud. And when she did that press conference, it was estimated that the Somali fraud was about $1 billion. And what we know today is that the fraud is between $9 to $14 billion. And some estimate even put that higher, closer to $20 billion. There's no way such a large-scale operation was taking place and the leadership of Minnesota didn't know exactly what was going on. While regular Americans were working hard to pay their taxes, these fraudsters were living a lavish lifestyle. It's like these migrants came to this country, Governor Tim Walz allowed them to rip off the American taxpayer, living a lavish lifestyle. And take a look at this reminder.
We just found out what the Somali pirates did with their loot. Millions in taxpayer dollars meant for hungry kids went to island vacations, lakefront views, and hot cars. The pirates lived big and burned through a lot of cash. New court filings obtained by CBS News show the Somali scammers were living like Mike Tyson. One went on a luxury honeymoon in the Maldives, the Radisson Blu Resort, with water so clear you can count the stripes on the fish. But they were at the private pool, popping bottles, sipping champagne during the day. But at night, the sommelier leads guests through the finest selection of vintages. The resort has a 3,500 bottle cellar filled with labels from around the world, and 7 restaurants serving top-tier cuisine. And don't worry, they're halal certified.
Right now, I'm thinking about quitting my job, packing my bags, moving to Minneapolis and starting a daycare. And then maybe I'll start living a lavish lifestyle. Because the leaders of Minneapolis, Minnesota, they make it so easy for anyone to essentially rip off the American taxpayer. And that is exactly what these Pennsylvania guys did. They knew it was so easy to go to Minneapolis and start a daycare and make millions of dollars. And that is exactly what they did. Take a look.
This is the case involving the two men from Philadelphia who heard it was easy to rip off taxpayers here in Minnesota. Federal prosecutors have called this case fraud tourism, saying the men traveled here to steal from the now defunct Medicaid program. Today, they traveled back here to face the consequences, and I had the chance to ask them about it. They called it fraud tourism. You want to respond to that, sir?
Tell them.
Why Minnesota, Mr. Brown?
So as I mentioned before, the leaders in Minneapolis and Minnesota, they made it so easy for anyone to defraud the system. They made it so easy for anyone to come in and take your tax dollars. And now Tim Walz, they're begging for your tax dollars. After the economy in Minneapolis is now tanking, they want you to pay for everything. After this entire thing happened, after all these fraudsters got caught, and the Trump administration decided to send ICE in. Instead of working with ICE and with federal agents to essentially get rid of these fraudsters and the criminals, the worst of the worst, and get them deported, what Tim Walz and the Democrats, they did, they tried to put up a fight. They were telling people to go out there to protest, to resist ICE, to agitate ICE, to shut down the economy. And here we have Tim Walz telling people that it's patriotic to go out there and to resist ICE. Take a look.
I want Minnesotans to hear this from me. The desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty at this point in time.
While people have the right to go out there and protest and let their voices be heard, what they don't have the right to do is to riot, to break things, destroy properties, and that is exactly what we saw happening in Minneapolis. And not only did these leaders tell these people to go out there and agitate ICE to try to prevent ICE from doing their jobs, they literally called for a statewide shutdown. And what this did, it told schools not to open, told businesses to shut down, told people not to go to work, to go out there in the streets, to march. And what this did, it literally destroyed the economy. Take a look at this reporting.
Today, activists are planning for a major rally and a march here downtown as part of a statewide shutdown that they're calling a day of truth and freedom, with no work, no school, and no shopping, so folks can come out and focus on protesting ICE.
There was pressure for a general strike on Friday, and more than 700 businesses went along. So there's a lot of pressure not to deal, not to sell, not to work. They're planning another general strike on Monday. So the hit on the economy here is going to be serious. Already some hotels have shut down, some restaurants have gone under. This kind of turmoil, certainly not good for business.
So this entire statewide shutdown brought Minnesota's economy to a standstill. And what is being reported is that this statewide shutdown was led by Somali businesses. And here we have a reporting, an article that's titled, "Somali Business Owners Spearhead Minnesota's Shutdown Against ICE." Hundreds of Somali-owned businesses are joining a multi-sector general strike on January 23rd as communities across Minnesota mobilize to demand ICE out of the state. And now that we know that this entire protest, this entire movement against ICE was planned, the entire statewide shutdown was planned, and Tim Walz and the government let it happen. Now they're demanding your tax dollars to pay for everything. The economy is tanking in Minnesota and Minneapolis, and they want your tax dollars. Not only do they want your tax dollars to essentially pay for everything that's broken, they want your tax dollars to give to these businesses, all these other businesses that chose to literally not work, not be open. And here's Tim Walz saying he's going to give tens of millions of dollars to these businesses. Take a look.
We're going to be proposing a first-time $10 million one-time targeted loans, forgivable loans, that we know, and I want to be very clear, is a very small piece of this, but what I am going to challenge as we get ready to start here in a few days, the legislative session, this legislative session needs to be about recovery of the damage that's been done to it.
So that is Governor Tim Walz, and fortunately he's not running for re-election. And what I've outlined throughout this video is that the leadership of Minnesota and Minneapolis, what they did, they allowed people to literally defraud the government. They took your tax dollars, your money, and they were living lavish lifestyles. While you were struggling to pay your taxes, they took your tax dollars. And ICE, the federal government, went in there to clean everything up. And then Tim Walz and the rest of the leadership there, they told people, oh, you can go and you can protest, you can resist ICE. It's patriotic to do this. And that is what people did. They started breaking things. Not only did they break things, but the leadership also told people like, hey, you don't have to work. Don't go to work. Go march in the streets. Shut down your businesses. No schools. Nothing at all. Statewide shutdown. And the economy went to shit. Excuse my language. The economy went to crap. And now they want your tax dollars to pay for everything. They want the federal government, they want the entirety of America to pay for their transgressions. They want the entirety of America to pay for their mishaps. It just doesn't make sense. You cannot make this stuff up. And that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Let me know in the comment section what you think, if you think the federal government should pay for everything that happened in Minneapolis and Minnesota. If you don't mind subscribing, liking, sharing, commenting as well, I'd really appreciate it. See you on the next one.